What happens when America's most beloved late-night host crosses the line with British royalty? You won't believe what unfolds when Prince Harry sits down for what was supposed to be a light-hearted interview, but quickly spirals into television's most shocking confrontation of the year. The tension was palpable from the moment the cameras started rolling, and by the end of the night, one of them would storm off set in a dramatic exit that has everyone talking. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when two of the world's most recognizable figures go head-to-head in prime time. The Late Show studio was buzzing with anticipation as Prince Harry made his entrance, to thunderous applause. The Duke of Sussex, relaxed in his signature casual blazer, waved to the audience with that familiar Windsor smile. Stephen Colbert, ever the showman, bounded over with his trademark energy. But there was something different in his demeanor tonight, a sharpness behind his usual comedic warmth that regular viewers might have missed. But Prince Harry certainly didn't. "Your Royal Highness, welcome back to The Late Show," Colbert began, his voice carrying just a hint of mock formality that made the audience chuckle. "Though I suppose it's just Harry now, isn't it? Since you've, well, stepped back from all that royal business." Harry's smile flickered for just a moment, but he maintained his composure. "That's right, Stephen. Just Harry works fine. Though I notice you Americans still can't seem to let go of the titles." The audience laughed, but there was an edge to Harry's response that Colbert immediately picked up on. "Oh, we love our titles. Here in America," Colbert shot back, leaning forward in his chair. "We just prefer to earn them rather than inherit them." The audience's laughter was more nervous now, sensing something brewing beneath the surface of what should have been friendly. "Banter!" Harry's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well, Stephen, I think we both know that not everything valuable in life comes from what we earn ourselves. Sometimes it's about what we choose to do with what we're given." The host's eyes gleamed with mischief, but it was the kind of dangerous mischief that spelled trouble. "Speaking of choices, let's talk about some of the interesting choices you've made lately. The Netflix deals, the memoir, the interviews. Quite the career pivot from royal duties to, well, let's call it the entertainment industry." "I wouldn't call sharing my truth entertainment, Stephen," Harry replied, his voice cooling several degrees. "Some of us believe in transparency and honesty, even when it's uncomfortable." Colbert's laugh was sharp and calculated. "Transparency. Right, yes. Because nothing says transparent like signing multi-million-dollar deals to air your family's dirty laundry on streaming platforms. Very noble, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Authentic?" The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the playful ribbing they were used to seeing on late-night television. This felt personal, pointed, and increasingly hostile. Harry's media training was evident as he maintained his posture, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the arms of his chair. "I think there's a difference between sharing your story and exploiting it," Harry said carefully. "And I'd argue that using your platform to attack someone for speaking their truth says more about you than it does about them." The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Colbert's trademark grin never wavered, but his eyes had gone cold. "Attack? Harry, I'm just asking the questions that millions of Americans are thinking. You've made yourself a public figure, a very wealthy public figure, by criticizing the very institution that gave you your platform in the first place. Some might call that, what's the British term? Taking the piss?" The British idiom delivered in Colbert's exaggerated American accent drew uncomfortable laughter from the audience, but Harry wasn't laughing. His face had gone completely serious, the last traces of his diplomatic smile vanishing entirely. "I think you might want to be careful about making assumptions about my motivations, Stephen," Harry said, his voice now carrying the authority that only comes from generations of royal breeding. "Especially when you're clearly more interested in cheap shots than actual conversation." Colbert sat back in his chair, spreading his hands in mock innocence. Cheap shots? Harry, this is late-night television in America. If you can't handle a little friendly ribbing, maybe you should have stayed in the palace where everyone has to pretend everything you say is fascinating. The words hung in the air like a challenge thrown down at dawn. The audience was dead silent, now sensing they were witnessing something far beyond the usual celebrity interview. Harry's eyes flashed with something dangerous. The look of a man who had been pushed too far by someone who clearly didn't understand the line they had just crossed. But what happened next would prove that Stephen Colbert had severely underestimated just how far Prince Harry was willing to go to defend himself. Harry leaned forward in his chair, his voice dropping to a level that somehow commanded more attention than shouting ever could. You know what, Stephen? You want to talk about platforms and institutions? Let's talk about yours. You've built your entire career on mocking people from behind a desk, haven't you? Taking shots at everyone while hiding behind the safety of your writer's room and your loyal audience. The audience fell into stunned silence. This wasn't the polite, media-trained Prince Harry they were expecting. This was someone who had clearly reached his breaking point, and Colbert's smug expression was starting to crack around the edges. I mean, that's literally my job, Colbert replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. It's called comedy, Harry. Maybe they don't have much of that in the palace. Oh, we have comedy, Harry shot back, his accent becoming more pronounced as his anger built. We just don't usually punch down at people who've been through trauma, and then act like we're doing some kind of public service. But I suppose that's the American way, isn't it? Package cruelty as entertainment and call it journalism? The color drained from Colbert's face. Several audience members actually gasped. Harry had just launched a direct assault on everything Colbert stood for, and the host was clearly scrambling to regain control of his own show. Now wait just a minute, Colbert said, his voice rising defensively. I've interviewed world leaders, Nobel Prize winners, activists fighting for justice. Don't you dare sit there and lecture me about what? Harry interrupted, something no guest had ever dared to do on The Late Show. About responsibility? About using your influence wisely? Because from where I'm sitting, all I see is a man who's gotten so comfortable attacking people that he's forgotten how to have an actual conversation. The tension in the studio was now suffocating. Camera operators were looking at each other uncertainly. Producers were frantically whispering into headsets, and the audience seemed frozen between fascination and horror at watching their beloved host get systematically dismantled by a member of the British royal family. Colbert's famous composure was completely shattered now. His hands were actually shaking as he tried to shuffle his index cards, a nervous habit his longtime viewers had never seen before. You know what, Harry? You come on my show, you accept my hospitality, and then you have the audacity to attack. Me? After everything your family has put the world through? The scandals, the drama, the constant attention-seeking? There it is, Harry said, almost smiling now but not in a pleasant way. The real Stephen Colbert, not the carefully crafted character, not the liberal crusader, just a bitter man who can't handle being challenged by someone he thought he could bully. The words hit Colbert like physical blows. His face was now flushed red, and beads of sweat were visible on his forehead under the studio lights. Bully? You want to talk about bullying? Your own family drove your wife to the point where she considered suicide, and you have the nerve to sit here and accuse me of bullying? The audience gasped collectively. Colbert had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, bringing up the most painful and personal details of Harry and Meghan's experiences with clinical precision designed to wound. Harry's face went completely white, then red with fury. How dare you, Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow audible throughout the entire studio. How dare you use my wife's pain as a punchline on your little television show? That's my family you're talking about. You pathetic excuse for a journalist. Colbert realized immediately that he had gone too far, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. I'm not using it as a punchline. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of someone who comes from a family that— Stop talking, Harry commanded, rising from his chair. The authority in his voice was unmistakable. This was a man who had been born to command, trained from birth to expect obedience, and every person in that studio felt it. Just stop talking, Stephen. You've shown everyone exactly who you are. The host tried to regain control, gesturing frantically to his producers off camera. Harry, sit down. We're in the middle of a show here. We've got commercial breaks. We've got nothing, Harry said, towering over the desk now. You think this is still your show? You think you're still in control here? You just attacked my wife, my family on national television, and you expect me to sit here and smile for your cameras? Colbert was now visibly panicking. This was live television. Millions of viewers were watching, and his biggest interview of the year was spiraling completely out of control. Look, maybe we both got a little heated. Why don't we take a breath, reset, and— Reset? Harry's laugh was harsh and bitter. There's no reset from what you just said, Stephen. There's no taking that back. You've shown America exactly what kind of man you really are when the cameras are rolling, and you think you can get away with anything. But the worst was yet to come, and what happened next would ensure that this confrontation would be remembered as the moment Stephen Colbert's career took a devastating turn. Harry's eyes narrowed as he looked down at the trembling host. You want to know what's really pathetic, Stephen? You've spent your entire career pretending to be the voice of moral authority in America, the defender of truth, the fighter against corruption and bullying. But when faced with someone who won't just sit there and take your abuse, this is who you really are. Colbert made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Harry, I think we're both saying things we don't mean. This is just television. It's not personal. Not personal. Harry's voice rose to a level that could be heard clearly throughout the studio. You made it personal the moment you decided to use my wife's darkest moments as ammunition for your pathetic comedy routine. You made it personal when you decided that my family's pain was worth a few cheap laughs from your audience. The audience was now completely silent, many covering their mouths in shock. Some were actually filming with their phones, despite the strict no-recording policy, sensing they were witnessing television history in the making. Look, I may have crossed a line, Colbert began, but Harry cut him off with a gesture that would have silenced a room full of world leaders. May have? Harry's laugh was cold and bitter. Stephen, you didn't cross a line, you obliterated it. And you know what the worst part is? You're going to go home tonight and tell yourself that this was just another day at the office. Just another celebrity who couldn't handle the heat. But I want you to remember this moment, because this is the moment you showed millions of people exactly who Stephen Colbert really is. The host was now sweating profusely, his carefully styled hair disheveled, his trademark confidence completely shattered. Harry, please, we can work this out. We can edit this. We can— Edit this? Harry's voice dripped with contempt. This is live television, Stephen. There's no editing your way out of what you've done here tonight. Every word you've said, every attack you've made, every cruel joke at my family's expense, it's all been broadcast to the world in real time. Colbert looked desperately toward his producers off camera, but they were frozen, unsure how to handle a situation that had spiraled so completely out of control. The man who had built his career on being quick-witted and unflappable was reduced to a stammering, sweating mess. I want you to think about something, Harry continued, his voice now carrying the full weight of his royal authority. You've spent years positioning yourself as better than other talk show hosts. More intelligent, more principled, more ethical. But tonight, you've proven that when push comes to shove, you're exactly what you claim to despise. A bully who picks on people he thinks can't fight back. The prince moved around the desk, getting closer to Colbert, who actually recoiled in his chair. The difference between us, Stephen, is that I've never pretended to be perfect. I've made mistakes, I've owned them, and I've tried to learn from them. But you? You hide behind your righteousness and your comedy while tearing people down for entertainment. That's not fair, Colbert protested weakly. I've done good work. I've held powerful people accountable. Have you? Harry interrupted. Or have you just attacked easy targets while pretending it was journalism? Because from where I'm standing, all I see is a coward who talks tough behind a desk, but falls apart the moment someone stands up to him. The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the cameras. Even the production crew had stopped their usual bustling, transfixed by the complete reversal of power they were witnessing. Harry straightened his jacket and looked directly into the main camera. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here tonight thinking I was going to have a conversation with a respected journalist. Instead, I've been subjected to a character assassination by a man who clearly has no respect for basic human decency. He turned back to Colbert one final time. Stephen, I hope this moment haunts you. I hope every time you look in the mirror, you remember the night you chose cruelty over compassion, ratings over respect, and your own ego over everything you claim to stand for. With that, Prince Harry removed his microphone, placed it deliberately on Colbert's desk, and began walking toward the exit. The audience watched in stunned silence as one of the most recognizable figures in the world strode confidently off the set of America's most popular late-night show. "Harry, wait!" Colbert called desperately, finally finding his voice as the prince reached the edge of the stage. "We can fix this. We can start over." Prince Harry stopped and turned back one last time, his expression a mixture of disappointment and disgust. "Stephen, some things can't be fixed. Some lines, once crossed, change everything. Tonight, you showed the world who you really are. Now you have to live with the consequences." And with that, Prince Harry walked off the late show stage, leaving Stephen Colbert sitting alone at his desk, facing a stunned audience and millions of viewers who had just witnessed the complete destruction of one of television's most powerful figures. The man who had built his career on destroying others had finally met someone who refused to be destroyed, and in the process, had destroyed himself. The cameras continued rolling as Colbert sat in shocked silence, finally understanding that some victories come at too high a price, and some guests fight back harder than you ever imagined possible.